Who's starting it off?
I'm
Barry.
starting it up.
Oh my God!
We got a dude named Pen Master starting off the damn story. Oh, man.
And trust me when I tell you, this brother right here, I'm just gonna let y'all see.
I don't know what's about to happen.
You want to go second, Mike, or you want to go third?
You know what? I'll go second, man.
Okay, cool. I'll go third. I'll go third then, and then.
Eric, you want to go fourth, or you want to close it off?
Oh man, look, look. When I do a comedy show, I do not want to be last. I'm not headlining.
There you go. There you go. You're smart. You're smart. All right, cool. So it's up to Nick. It's up to Nick to end it then. That's perfect. Cool. Like he said, it's gonna be 2 minutes each. If you don't hear that sound, do the sound one more time for him, Barry.
Wow.
Right. So when it's your turn, you just jump in, and when Barry start, and then the sound go off, you up next, Mike, and then that's it. We're gonna go 3 rounds. Take it wherever you want to take it. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Diddy said.
Okay.
Here we
He
go.
said twice though. Take that. He
right.
said twice.
Mm-hmm. So all right, y'all ready?
Yes,
ready.
sir.
Whenever you started.
Okay. So this particular story right here comes from the planet Sphincter. And so, you know what I'm saying? There was a king, you know what I'm saying? And his name was Gas. And so everybody, you know what I'm saying, knew King Gas, and you know, they knew about his reign. And, you know, he had a reign that spread far and wide. And, you know what I mean? It was one of those things where everybody just, you know, kind of just knew when he was in the room. You know, he had a presence that, you know, everybody could feel. And so, you know, King Gas, you know, he tried to have a strong reign, and he tried to keep things tight at Planet Sphincter. You know, so, you know, every now and again, you know, there was, you know, these women on the planet that, you know, their whole ordeal was to help him keep things tight. You know what I'm saying? And they were the key girls. You know what I'm saying? They called them the key girls. You know what I'm saying? Key girls. And, you know, they had beads that they wore around their neck at all times. So the key girls wore the beads. You know what I'm saying? And their job was to help keep Planet Sphincter running tight. You know, but you know what I'm saying, King Gas, you know what I'm saying, he was kind of mouthy at times. So, you know, people say he was long-winded, you know. So he would start and he would talk, and, you know, he would just be flowing and flowing and flowing. And so, you know, there were these other, you know, aides that sometimes had to stop him from talking, and they were called the Tums. You know what I'm saying? So the Tums, their job was to, every now and again, when King Gas was doing a little too much, you know what I'm saying, he was getting a little too long-winded, they would come in and calm him down. You know what I'm saying? They had to calm King Gas down. So everybody had their role. And, you know what I'm saying, the key girls, you know what I'm saying, they had their beads, and, you know, they felt like they weren't getting the credit that they deserved for keeping things in line. You know what I'm saying? Because they felt like they weren't getting their recognition for doing their job.
Well, part of the reason is because, man, you know, one of the women had some beef with King Gas. You know what I'm saying? He done dropped this illegitimate child on them called Sir Constipation. So, you know, Sir Constipation was real stubborn. You know what I'm saying? That dude would not move for nothing. I mean, when I tell you he ain't going nowhere, he ain't going nowhere. So one day, his mom, one of the key girls, was trying to, you know, see what Gas can do to get this man to move. So Gas was like, look, man, only thing I got, man, is I know the Tums, they ain't worth nothing. But you know what? I got, you know, his grandmother, K.O. Pectate, she might be the one to get him to move. You know what I'm saying? So we gonna give her a call and see what she say. You know, even though you done dropped this bomb on me and told me that Sir Constipation is my son, you know, we're gonna see what she can do, because she can make anybody move. Because next thing you know, constipation, you know, really do got a smart mouth, man. Sometimes he do want to like drop a little bit. He drop a little bit at a time, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he dropped a little bit at a time, but it's just really sporadic. It's just really sporadic. Sometimes they called him Mr. Bird because he would drop sporadically. And you had this guy too, by the name of Sean, and he got hired because his job was to comb through all this. So Sean Combs was like, "I'm getting in that sphincter. Ain't nobody stopping me from getting in that sphincter one way or another," because he was a bad boy. And he said, "I'm gonna get in there, whether you like it or not. I always get what I want." So he decided to assemble a team. And he really worked from the inside out. That's how Mr. Sean works. So he had got one of King Gas's cousins called Log. Log was a lumberjack. He Log dropped some stuff where if you came by when he was working, Logs would be dropping left and right. And then he also got another one, his cousin, called his name was Rue, and his last name was he had a funny last name, just NS. But together they just said, "Ain't nobody calling you Rue NS, we're gonna call you the Runs." So the Runs was fast. He was a really fast guy, and his dream was to be in the Olympics because he was so fast. It's like, ooh, like if you were ever around when the runs hit, you would know. You could even hear him because he didn't have soft feet. Like, ooh, that's the Runs right there. Like, yeah, that's definitely runs. He all over the place too. He's sporadic. And then he had another cousin too. His goal was to be in the NBA. And this was around COVID time when he said, "I want to be in the NBA." And it's because his name was BG. He was a BG, really stood for bubble guts. But when he saw that the NBA was playing in a bubble, he was like, "I feel like I was created for this. I'm a bubble. They playing in a bubble." So he really started working on his skills. But they didn't tell you about this though. They had a rival. King Gas had a rival, and it was King Ura. It was a nation. King Ura was over a nation. So you had King Ura Nation and
So King Urination, every time he tried to push on people for some reason, Sphincter would push too, and nobody knew why. You just trying to, calm things down and wet things up, and all of a sudden, Sphincter wants to loosen up too. And it's like, bro, you don't let him loose, right? Sphincter we talked about two of his sons, Runs and what was the other son's name?
Bubble
Sir
Guts and
Constipated.
Log. Oh
yeah. So the crazy thing about King Ass is Runs could run around his brother. So he could literally have Runs and still be locked up. You know what I'm saying? So he'd be in his throne all day long, just locked up. Because Runs would run around his brother and he would just stay there. So it's like, bro, I need either both of y'all to leave because he wasn't trying to gas up the whole neighborhood. You got to go in and out. You know what I'm saying? You got to pick one. You got to pick one, right? So the thing was they had two mothers, right? So Log had his current wife, who was the queen at the time, but Runs had a different mom and he was older. So in order to calm Runs down, they had to call Gas X to come by and calm her son down, right? But she was like, "My son was prophesied on when he was born. In order to change him, I have to change his name because he is supposed to constantly keep running. That's his mission. If he doesn't do that, he's just like his other brother, and you're even worse off because they're both in there, right?" So Gas X, the previous queen. Oh,
So Gas X, the previous queen, she was very promiscuous, and she had she had a lot of kids, and the whole family they were fans of the football. They loved football, so every year she would drop the kids off at the Super Bowl, and there was no reason that these kids would get to the Super Bowl and they would never watch the game. They would lead a Super Bowl and just go swimming in the deep. You know what I mean? But this one particular year, she went to drop the kids off at the Super Bowl, but they had an evil aunt. Her name was Di.
Mm.
Diarrhea. Yep. She went to the Super Bowl with him. But what ended up happening was she rushed past everybody. Her runs were they were peas in the pod. And speaking of peas, this particular year they took peas and corn to the Super Bowl with them. And when they got to the Super Bowl to go swimming, that was a problem. They got to the Super Bowl to go swimming, but the traffic was backed up. Everything was backed up, you know what I mean? So they went to go to the Super Bowl, but what ended up happening was instead they had to do they walked the runway. They was all over the floor walking the runway, you know what I'm saying? And in this place, the city of Sphincter, there was one thing that was never allowed to come to the party. You know what I mean? And his name was Gur. His first name was Finger.
So they, everybody knew that you just didn't let Finger in Planet Sphincter because, saying the thing about, Finger, when he got in there, he made a mess. You know what I mean? And he would just get everything everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And there was a decorative, ooze in the Planet Sphincter that, they coveted. And when Finger got in there, his main goal, he would just pull all that out and he would just put it all over the place. So everybody knew, what, Finger is trying to steal our coveted ooze. So we got to keep Finger out of the Sphincter at all costs. But, the king from the planet Ura, his nation had this coveted prize that was handed out at the end of every Super Bowl. And everybody was trying to win the Super Bowl to get the coveted golden shower. You know what I'm saying? Planet, King Ura, his nation, would bestow the winner with a coveted golden shower. And it was always delivered by their main jester, Robert. You know what I'm saying? Robert would always be the one to pass that coveted prize out. So there was another a cousin of Robert's, and Robert was getting ready to go to, but his cousin's name was Cheeks, and Robert was getting upset because everybody kept slapping Cheeks, and he couldn't figure out why no matter who Cheeks walked by, they just wanted to slap her. And so Robert was pissed because everybody kept slapping his cousin. He was like, why is everybody slapping Cheeks? Like, what is going on? He couldn't figure out what the beef was on their way to the Super Bowl.
Wow. So while Robert was getting mad slapping Cheeks, he also got mad because while Cheeks was getting slapped, he was trying to make sure he documented everything that was going on. So he had to make sure that the cameraman was at the right angle. So making sure that he was getting upset when Cheeks gets slapped. And then all of a sudden, he was like, wait a minute. I kind of like it when the Chiefs get slapped. So I think I want everybody to see this. So he told his cameraman to keep rolling. So he just made sure that whenever they did that, slapping Cheeks, just want to make sure that they of age. You know what I'm saying? You don't want no old Cheeks up in there. So we got to make sure that they up in age and stuff like that. So, but what ended up happening, man, them Cheeks got too hot. And when them Cheeks got too hot, he had to cool it down. So the only way to cool it down was to invite some people from Urination, from the planet Urination. So that was the only way to cool them Cheeks down. So in order for him not to get so mad about it, man, he had to call a few people over there from Urination, man, to come over there and cool them Cheeks down, man, because he definitely didn't want people crying and falling out all over the place, man. So he called this lady over here from Urination, man, and she came over there and she took care of it, man. But she didn't like what she saw. She was like, wait a minute, them Cheeks is too young. So she went and reported. She went and reported on him, man. She was like, "Hey, we got to do something about this guy, man. He ain't messing with the right age cheeks." So what he did,
Wow.
So what he did was he assembled a team, and this was a special unit team because remember he said the Cheeks would get too hot, so they had this special team. When they got too hot, some other things would happen, and they had a name for it. They want to diagnose everything, so they called it hemorrhoids. So they put this special team together. It was the cream team, right? So the cream team, they were rich, cash rules everything around me. The cream team, they was like, if we apply ourselves to the hemorrhoids, then it'll make that problem go away because the hemorrhoids don't want the cream team to come in, and it's just one of those things. So it's like, okay, cool, we got to come up with a way to get that. Meanwhile, we still at the Super Bowl. You got the Super Bowl going on. You got all these Cheeks in the stands, so it's they clapping. They going crazy. Cheeks is clapping. It's an applause. They on the Richter scale, it is going up. They're like Cheeks everywhere. One thing about it too, Cheeks was a gambler, man. Cheeks had a gambling problem. So Cheeks was, and you knew Cheeks had a gambling problem because they would always be like, Cheeks would always be going around talking about, what's the spread? What's the spread? Cheeks always wanted the spread. They like, I need to know the correct spread. So, and all that's going on. And of course, they want the parlays and all that. Meanwhile, you got the players in the back getting ready for the Super Bowl, some of them icing up, and some of them from King Ass, they're taking mud baths. They like, we don't like the golden showers. The golden showers is only for winners, but anyone can take a mud bath. They was like, it's good for your skin to take a mud bath. And then they also had this thing that it kind of you had the smelling powder to help players wake up. There was another thing to help them with their nerves before the game. If they were ever feeling dismal, they took something called Pepto-Bismol. So Pepto-Bismol would help them. The females brought this. It was some female nurses would all come in all dressed in pink. It was pink everywhere. And it was like, hey, you take this Pepto-Bismol, it's going to help you relax for the game.
And the reason they need to relax is because everybody was in a terrible mood. Now, what you need to understand is, Planet Sphincter was very small. It's a very small planet, right? It was only one country in the whole planet. And it was like New York, right? So it had Planet Sphincter, and then it had the state of Sphincter, and then it had Sphincter, right? So the Super Bowl is always held in the capital in Sphincter, right? So the national animal of Sphincter, you know how California got a bear and America got an eagle. Sphincter had a gerbil, right? So the gerbil was a mystical animal. It's not like the gerbil that we see today. It had wings and it flew and it was very beautiful. And it was the animal of pleasure, they called them. They said that it was a mystical animal to bring pleasure, right? And just like we have a problem with bees today, they had an issue with the possible extinction of the gerbil. So for some reason, the gerbils were just dying off and nobody understood it. So everybody's in a bad mood. They need this game, to cheer everybody up, but there's no pleasure, right? That you can't have pleasure without fun. You can't do that. So, man, we don't got no gerbils. We're trying to have a Super Bowl, and then we're coming up to the time when it's supposed to sing the national anthem, and it was Aretha Franklin singing the national anthem at this game. And when she tightened up to sing that high note, King Ass realized he loosened up. And he was like, why is this happening to me? Like my brother, whenever he does something, I want to loosen up. Whenever the urination does something, I want to loosen. I don't want to loosen up. I want to stay tight.
Wow. And while all this was going on, there was the gerbils weren't completely extinct. There was one gerbil, but he was caught in a very tight position. And that was the news basically went like this. They were saying that, there was one gerbil that was found. He's in a tight spot, but it doesn't look good. And while they was talking, the gerbil was Planet Sphincter there was a storm. They called them tight storms, and the storm tightened up and on Planet Sphincter, and the gerbil passed away. And the news lady, she was listening to what the anchor was telling her. Then she got back And she looked in the camera. She said, "Well, it's official. They wrecked him." So the gerbil was done. He was done. But that wasn't the end of the world because what one of the favorite pastimes in Planet Sphincter, even though the gerbil was they wrecked the gerbil, one of their favorite pastimes in Planet Sphincter was grocery shopping. They loved eating groceries. Got to eat the groceries in Planet Sphincter. You know what I'm saying? But that was just one particular day that, you know what I'm saying, the family had that. It was a holiday, grocery eating. It was called grocery eating day. You know what I'm saying? And this particular holiday, they always enjoyed the pleasure of what they call it's called slipping. You go to slip and slide, but this place was called lick and slide. And on this particular holiday of grocery eating day, they had a storm. There was a mud storm right in the middle of eating groceries. Not only was
and so everybody was appalled, and they were really upset. And sometimes when it rains, it pours, right? And so everybody knew there was this particular menace, and you never knew when he was coming to town. And the problem with this menace, his name was Shaft. And whenever Shaft would come into Planet Sphincter, he would leave his kids everywhere. So, I'm saying, them little kids would get up in Planet Sphincter and they would just run amok. They would be running everywhere. Them kids but everybody knew they didn't belong there. They had no purpose in Planet Sphincter. So, once the kids got there, really all they did was, just hang around the walls. And you know what I'm saying, there was a mall. The mall was called, the intestines, and they would go to the lower intestines, you know what I'm saying? And they would just, because they kids, they wild, they crazy, you know what I mean? And for some reason, they were always looking for eggs. But there was no eggs on Planet Sphincter. They didn't exist there. So, these kids is running around in the lower intestine looking for eggs, just causing trouble for everybody. So, so everybody knew that, Shaft could, come at any time, just pop up in Planet Sphincter and drop the kids off. And that's exactly what happened during, eating the groceries. Shaft just burst right in there and dang, there goes the kids. So, now, the kids are running amok in Planet Sphincter. They disrupted the Super Bowl, and there was a family. There was the Ease family. And, they were trying to evacuate the Super Bowl, but the Ease didn't want to leave. They just wanted to float around. So, the floaties, they was just hanging around the Super Bowl, and they just wouldn't leave. They couldn't get them out of the Super Bowl no matter how much they tried to flush the crowd. The floaties just kept sticking around.
So while these floaties was hanging around, man, you still got the kids hanging around too, and they always was looking for eggs. But this one particular day, man, right before the halftime during the Super Bowl, man, they ended up finding some gerbil eggs, dog, that was buried deep inside, right beneath the lower intestine. So all hope is not lost, because now they got these gerbil eggs that they done found, man, that was caught right on the polyps, man, on the lower intestine. And so one of these kids, man, they was like, man, I'm going to take care of this egg, man, because we trying to have some fun, man. We trying to make this place a happy place again, man. So what I'm going to do is, man, I'm going to raise this egg and make sure that this egg do what they need to do. And we can have some more gerbils coming in there, man. Hopefully it's more than one gerbil inside this egg. If we got that, our problem is lost. So again, this one kid decided to hold on to this egg and make sure that he, kept it warm and kept it safe so it can hatch. Even though a gerbil is a mammal, they still got eggs. So what we want to do, so what we were gonna do is, is make a contest out of it, because the kids like to play around, man, and the lower intestines and stuff, man. So we was gonna try to play a little game, man, where whoever win, they get to win this egg. So this one particular day, they was running around and they was like, "Hey, let's play hide and go seek." And whoever gets to this egg first, they get to keep it. And so what ended up happening one day is while they was playing, trying to win this egg hatched.
So the egg hatched, and now that the egg is hatched, they just think they live there. So they like, hey, this is our home. They're like, no, you're really not supposed to be here. But this is why they called them squatters, because they would come and squat and they wouldn't leave. They're like, oh man, the squat, nobody really liked the squatters, because it's like, yeah, it's cool for you to be here for a minute, but not, you can't stay here forever. Come on, man. So no one really liked the squatters. So it was a problem. And also, I know Nick had told you that the gerbils were dying. The gerbils weren't actually dying, they were frozen. So the gerbils were frozen, but then when they got warm, they would wake up and run around. When it was something about the sun and sphincter, how it warmed them up so much, and then they would become unfrozen, and they would be running around having a ball up in sphincter land. The gerbils, but then they would get confused, like it wasn't like this on the outside. It smells a little different, and sometimes they did want to go home, but again, they were stuck. But before this, there was a doctor that was working on a plan, because we did think the gerbils were going to be extinct. This was Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth was an expert, and Dr. Ruth was like, you know what? Just in case the gerbils do run out, I need to. We can use my homeboy, the plug. The plug could actually take the gerbils' place. The plug is very valuable. Everybody seeks the plug. They like, hey, we need the plug. The plug will work. And then the plug, he had a crew, the beads. The beads was one of their crews as well that they used. It was this one guy that was very cool. This guy was so cool. Whenever he was around, everybody would be like, oh, that's a vibe. That's a vibe. And Vibe last name was Raider. So Vibrator, they was like, Vibrator goes to town. When he's charged up, I don't know what he be drinking, but when Vibrator is charged up, oh my goodness. When Vibrator had like different levels and stuff. It would just be in there jerkulating and just stuff like the boy could dance. Vibrator could dance, man. It would get up in there and dance around and go to town.
So these plugs that they had, y'all might think they were to keep the gerbils in, but no. They were to keep the gerbils out until they grew to the point where they could get out on their own, right? Because you don't want a young gerbil going up in and messing around in there that doesn't have the strength to get out. So realize the whole solar system here, they're very small planets, but there was another two twin planets called Areola, right? But that's where you would take the gerbils to incubate, right? So when they hatch right outside the sphincter. And you don't want them to go back in because they may never come back out because they don't know what they're doing, right? They haven't even learned to walk yet. So they plug him up and then runs, grabs him up, flies him up to planet's areola, right? So here's the problem. He tried to do that when they came out and somebody done cut the runway. So he didn't know he didn't know how to get it. It all looked the same to him everywhere he looked. He was like, well, where do I fly? Where's the runway? Who would cut the runway? Traditionally, nobody ever cut the runway. And all of a sudden, everything is smooth. He's like, well, as much as I love to run on a smooth surface, this is not how I fly the gerbils and we already got a problem because these mystical animals are unable to provide pleasure because they're becoming extinct. We finally found some, and we can't get them to where they're supposed to grow because the runway is gone. Right? So he's going crazy again, all during the Super Bowl. Right? All of this has happened during the Super Bowl. We had like we had the fourth.
So here's what's crazy. While this was going on at the Super Bowl, there was 2 gerbils that got left behind. They got left behind. And the small gerbil, one gerbil was left behind, but it was another gerbil that kind of tried to stay back to help him. And, he went to go help him, and the gerbil was stuck. He was stuck. He was stuck in a big pile of mud, and he was angry. He was like, this is some bullshit. And the other gerbil was looking at him like, no, I'm pretty sure it's human. You know what I'm saying? And when they finally got him pulled out of the tight spot he was in, they tried to take a shortcut to Planet Areola. But they ended up in this one spot called it was they instead of getting to Planet Areola, they got to a planet called Planet Uterus. And Planet Uterus, everything always flowed down. You know what I'm saying? And this particular day, there must have been a red moon or something, because they ended up in a bad spot. Period. It was just a bad spot. Period. You know what I'm saying? So when in this particular spot, you know what I'm saying? They remembered that they had saw Shaft when they were on Planet Sphincter. Well, they didn't think they were gonna see Planet Shaft, and they start Planet Shaft again. But this particular time, Planet Shaft, he was doing a dance they called a bob and weave, in, out, in, out. You know, he just bobbing and weaving, in, out, in, out. And then he let the kids go.
Wow.
Boy, y'all wild.